The hybrid workforce is here to stay, and it requires real-time visibility, control, and rapid response of every endpoint, whether it's in the office or home. Tanium offers an endpoint management and security platform built for the most demanding IT environments. Many of the world's largest and most sophisticated organizations, including nearly half of the Fortune 100, rely on Tanium to deliver unmatched endpoint visibility and control. Whether you're preparing for zero trust or protecting your network from supply chain risk, Tanium empowers technology leaders to achieve greater agility, efficiency, and confidence. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Tanium. Today's networks are changing fast, and employees, devices, and infrastructures are more distributed than ever. Gigamon Threat Insight is a cloud-native, high-velocity network detection and response solution that's purpose-built to enable you to get in front of this transformation. Discover hidden network threats, automate security investigations, and optimize security workflows to stay a step ahead of attackers with Gigamon Threat Insight. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Gigamon. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. The Cyber Risk Alliance, in partnership with InfraGard, has launched the Critical Infrastructure Resilience Benchmark Study. Measure your readiness for ransomware by completing the survey and getting your score by visiting securityweekly.com/CIRB. This segment is sponsored by Keeper Security. You can visit securityweekly.com/Keeper Security to learn more. Joining us for this segment is Darren Guccione. Darren is the CEO and co-founder of Keeper Security, the creator of Keeper, a password manager, and secure digital vault. He joins us today to discuss ways to combat these threats, as well as learn to boost your existing cybersecurity policies and infrastructure. Darren, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Darren, how'd you get your start in information security?
Well, my background is in industrial enterprise systems engineering. Coupled that later in life with a master's in finance and accounting, sat for the CPA exam, and then really for the last, did real estate and finance work for about 15 years, and then decided to really get into technology full time. So I've been doing that for the last really 15 years, and it really began through a relationship with my business partner, Craig Lurie. So we had built and sold our first tech company in our 20s called Apollo Solutions. Then I went into real estate and finance, then decided to repartner with him on this company, which is Keeper Security, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So, tackling the problem of a password vault, what made you want to go in that direction?
Well, this is back in 2008. The iPhone had come out. At that point in time, there was really nothing for protecting, digital assets on a mobile device. So we started there and proliferated the platform really across desktop and browser. Really started off with what we call a zero knowledge security model. And it really, just took the vision from the consumer base that we had for the first 4.5 years, and then we just proliferated into B2B. So we've been expanding quickly and really, I've always loved technology, but cybersecurity is something that I've really gotten into, especially with, the business partnership and then the team today, which is right around 300 people.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's, obviously there's a lot of password vaults out there on the market today. Over the years, we've talked about various vulnerabilities, features, bugs, and the differences in the implementations. What makes Keeper different in this market today?
It's really, at the nucleus of the team in terms of development and engineering and science is really around cryptography, zero knowledge security architecture, zero trust. Security is the nucleus of our business. Everything else, becomes ancillary, but of course critical. It just all starts with security. So the product differentiation, I would say, is from a security perspective, we objectively believe that, we like to be the best in security. In terms of functionality, ease of use, and convenience, I think we work really hard to build elegance and beauty into the platform so that we can ubiquitize security products with something that's very easy to use. As you know, traditionally speaking, when you move into, the SMB mid-market or enterprise space, you realize quickly that in order to gain massive traction and a prolific adoption of the product, it's really critical for the product to be easy to use and easy on the eyes. So those are things that we really focus on. And I would say with password security, it's very granular. There are hundreds of different features and aspects of the functionality that can provide differentiators between us and the competitive set that exists today. So we're really proud of that innovation, and that's really helped the product gain a lot of traction and win a lot of industry awards.
Yeah, that's really awesome, because I've seen weird things in password managers, especially with the copy paste buffer. Have you done some engineering around some of those like weird things that happen, such as, the password living in the copy paste buffer? That's often how my friends attack, these products.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time with InfoSec. We have relationships both inside the company. We, employ PhDs, a lot of master's degree experts in cybersecurity, bug bounty programs, of course, working with the external lens and environment there is really important for us, because we love to hear not just about the strengths of the product, but I get more interested in what the challenges and any potential weaknesses are, and those are where we focus on closing gaps. So whether it's something inside the browser that's sitting out there, or now as we get more into protecting not just standard login credentials on the human side of the equation, but also more pervasive secrets throughout the entire infrastructure of an organization. This is really something that is really about just a more pervasive mindset and adopting, this external lens, that's what I call it, to make sure that we collaborate very closely with InfoSec and the top experts, in this industry.
Yeah. Tyler?
So I have a quick question for you, Darren. The problem of passwords has been a problem forever, and clearly you're an expert in the password world, having run this business for over a decade now. Can you comment a little bit on the futures of the password in a basic sense? Is the password eventually or ever going to go away or die in favor of biometric multi-auth? I don't think there's anybody better positioned to comment on that potential future than you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, we see these technologies that are called passwordless. They're essentially what I like to call a feature, not a full end-to-end solution. They're also, when you see something that is more designed where they say, oh yes, we're a full end-to-end solution, it's typically focused around what we call customer authentication. So for example, I use a banking application just like you probably do, right? So I look at my phone and it authenticates me through my face into my banking application. That's calling upon, as we know, a password that's stored in the encrypted enclave of the device. But biometric is used as the elegant factor for quickly authenticating me. And these passwordless solutions, there's several, Transmit Security, Trusona, Veridium. There's a lot of great solutions out there. So what we are trying to do at this company is really focus on this idea around passwordless becoming something more of a psychology factor. What I mean by that is people, including me, do not like transacting with passwords. We do not like doing that. So the solutions are designed, whether you're calling your product passwordless, at the end of the day, are passwords going away? No, I don't see passwords going away. In fact, all of the studies that we've been conducting through the proliferation of enterprise cloud, and that coupled with the catalytic event of us going to distributed remote work by virtue of the COVID pandemic, what's happened is that now you have an exponentially greater number of credentials to protect. And so when it comes to biometrics, what we like to say is something really straightforward. Biometrics are great when they're coupled with a password. Why? Because you can change a password if it's stolen. You can change a password if it's located on the dark web and is being used to target your infrastructure. You cannot rotate a fingerprint. You cannot rotate your retina. If your identity is stolen, it's a big problem. So passwords, as of now, are essential for creating and generating keys. But at the same time, we want to utilize biometrics and other elegant factors on the passwordless side to bring those two things together so that I can authenticate and also get my full end-to-end encryption within the same platform. So that, hopefully addresses the question.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And you mentioned something in particular there that caught my ear, and that's the psychology of it, right?
Yeah.
And there's obviously a certain level of psychology around ease of use, user experience that goes alongside the password. And traditionally, that's always what's made the password the most hated authentication mechanism on the planet. And in some ways, that's what your technology really set out to solve, was that ease of use problem, correct?
Yeah, like when you authenticate into your desktop, by virtue of our platform, you should be able to authenticate into any native cloud or hybrid application. So it doesn't matter if it's SAML compliant or not. It doesn't matter if you're authenticating through Azure or a product like Okta for SSO purposes. You should be able to quickly authenticate. And even if you have traditional passwords, you should be able to click a button and quickly authenticate into any system or network or application that you need. You shouldn't be fumbling around with passwords. And if you're, dealing with multi-factor authentication, the mere fact that traditionally, we've had to enter 6 or 7 digit passcodes into a computing device is something that you shouldn't also have to do. So again, the entire platform in play for us is, how do we make this a lot more elegant and ubiquitous for the end user? And that's what we really work on here every single day.
Yeah, Darren, I think it's interesting your comments on Passwordless, right? Because it's not all that dissimilar to having a password. If you think of it as a secret that's stored in a secure enclave, the hash of your fingerprint or your password really aren't all that different in that sense, right?
That's correct. So I think that, this whole premise around something and something you have or something that you are is something that we want to unify. Again, I would say this just not for ourselves, but all of the technology partners that we work with, the most important thing to me as a CEO and to us as innovators is to unify convenience and security, so that when you enter into an environment, whether it's in the mid-market enterprise, because they have the most systems and networks to address, you want to tackle not just authentication. What a lot of people don't typically realize is that, a product like Azure, which is a great identity platform, does not necessarily give you the full end-to-end encryption and security that you would traditionally need throughout the entire enterprise, right? There's a lot of outliers and use cases, native applications all the time. How do you share login credentials across multiple websites, applications, and systems with teams? How do you manage and protect secrets across different types of machines? There are so many different targets and digital assets that the cyber criminals can go after today, that you have to think in more of a comprehensive enterprise-wide scale. And the only way to do that is if you take the position that authentication and encryption have to be unified and more ubiquitous. And that is really what we work with in terms of our technology solution providers and, of course, the team at the company.
Mm.
Another point I just wanted to make is it's not just all about passwords. This is about storing, sharing, managing sensitive stuff in general. I've been using a password database for over a decade now, and I've got a lot of stuff in there that aren't passwords.
Oh, yeah.
Credit cards. I noticed that they'll store credit cards and allow you to autofill.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's metadata, there's files. I mean, we protect DevOps teams all the time, right? They're constantly logging in and out of different machines and networks and servers. You've got digital certificates, you've got SSH keys. There's just a tremendous amount of data, including files, right? So employee census data or bank records or tax documents or a business plan. So think about ubiquity, right? That every digital asset that is ostensibly targeted by a cyber criminal doesn't have to be a set of login credentials for a system. Could also be trade secrets or anything that's sensitive to your organization. All of that gets ubiquitized, encrypted, and protected within this vault architecture. And that's really what we need to be thinking about, because the cyber criminals are there obviously to make a bunch of money, but each of the things that we talk about today, there's always a focus around, well, we have to manage our passwords. Yes, to us, that's like the baseline, right? That's the starting point. But it's far more pervasive than that, because again, you have to protect metadata, notes, lists, and files. And so this is, for a consumer, we would call this password management. Okay, I think that's a safe term. It's easy to understand. In the mid-market and enterprise, even in the SMB realm, which comprise 80% of the global economy, but in mid-market enterprise, which is always under attack, including the public sector, we call this Enterprise Password Management and Security, EPM. And that means a lot more than just passwords and credentials, right?
Yeah,
so
Darren,
all other things.
I'll give you a great use case that just this morning I had to do. I had an SSL private key, and I had to get that
Right.
to a developer. Well,
Yep.
how do you do that if you don't have a unified solution that everyone has, that it's easy to use? And in your use case, my thing was, well, if you have Signal and I have Signal, I can do disappearing messages, and that was like the best I could come up with. But again, that's not like the most super usable thing either, and requires some diligence on the user. So I like how you're describing your platform as a usable, secure place that when I need to get a key to a developer, I can do that securely.
Oh yeah.
Well, and if you don't make the right way to do it easy and available,
it's
to
going in
employees,
email, right?
they're just gonna get their job done, right? They're gonna get their work done, and they're gonna do it the wrong way, and it's gonna be hanging out in somebody's inbox somewhere.
Yeah, and you can see, there's so many secrets that are distributed within infrastructure today. I mean, with the proliferation of cloud and the number of endpoints, I mean, the job of a DevOps team is completely misunderstood, and it's typically just unappreciated, just because most of the public domain, they don't know. It's not by virtue of malice. It's just, because they just don't have access to it. They don't fully understand it. Those teams have such a tremendous responsibility to protect and safeguard an organization. I mean, think about a data center, like a data center for, any of the largest social networks that we know of, and all the tools that we use today for conducting search online. The infrastructures are absolutely astounding. They're absolutely enormous in terms of the millions of devices that have to be protected, and the number of secrets that have to be created, rotated, shared with, a user that should and could have access to that network or system. So that's really what this platform is designed to do. And it's designed to do it in a very simple and hyper secure way.
So Darren, do you also make available to enterprises a secrets vault that's used by applications?
Yep, it's all built into the platform. So the platform covers everything from, passwords, credentials, secrets, metadata, including files. So all of it is ubiquitized into the platform.
That's really cool. Yeah, because that's the other thing, to your point. You've got thousands of in some cases millions, right?
Millions.
A number of those are EC2 instances. They all come with an SSH key that you have to manage.
Yeah, I mean, our teams, look, we use this for ourselves. Our DevOps team, our security team, infrastructure team, they're constantly moving in and out of systems, right, to manage their own infrastructure. So the key exchange, the way that you do that, the way that you protect each individual record with a separate encryption key, the way that you delegate administration, right? Because a DevOps team, you may have 6 or 7 or 20 DevOps teams. They don't necessarily have access to the same records. So all of that granularity in terms of how you provision to them, what rights they have, what type of role-based access controls and enforcement policies they have, all of that is granular and curated to the nth degree so that it matches the internal controls that you have within your organization. It doesn't force you into something that is adverse to best practices. It helps support that, and it parallels it.
Yeah, I like that as well, because oftentimes, we focus on the technical aspects, and then you get to billing and you realize that accountants need some level of access to your systems and services as well in order to do the accounting and the billing. And I'm like, well, wait, this needs to be provisioned very carefully, as you don't want to give them more than what they need, and you have to share those credentials with them somehow. So I like your solution for that challenge as well.
The other thing too is you brought up a good point. Not all teams are going to have the same provisioning method. We have plenty of clients. There's thousands that say, look, I would like to provision the application, to our DevOps team through, an SSO platform, but I want to provision to sales and marketing through Azure. And I want to provision this particular team in HR through email provisioning or through an API. No problem. You can do it, however you wish, by team, by role, or even by individual. It's very granular, very curated. And then the reason we've done it that way is because, quite frankly, when you're trying to map into a global organization, there are organizations that, may be on-prem, off-prem, hybrid. They may use a multitude of different identity platforms. And they don't necessarily, we don't want to force them to change their identity stack. That's too frictionless. We want them to say, okay, look, I don't really care what identity stack you have. I don't really care whatever your architecture is. Whatever you have, we map straight into it and allow you to provision within like a few hours. If you have 100,000 users that need to get this on all of their devices, you're literally done with that provisioning within a few hours. It doesn't take a few weeks or months. It's a few hours and you're done. And so that's the elegance that I think is absolutely required to build, lasting applications as we proliferate, to these more distributed remote work environments.
Yeah, that was one of my other questions with the password vault, especially. You may have different areas of your organization and or different users that have implemented their own password vaults. What's the migration look like into something like Keeper?
Yeah, so we have a very simple tool. It's an import wizard. So if you're using one of the competitive offerings or any of the freeware that's out there, open source products, we have an import wizard that instantly imports whatever you have. It could be a CSV file. It could take your vault and import it straight into a Keeper vault. It's very easy to onboard.
Yeah, I can see that being a concern, right? Because either they don't have something or they have something that's half implemented, or like in our organization, a lot of companies got acquired and we were one of them, and we used a competing product. And I'm like, well, how do we do that migration? Because we've got all our passwords in there. And then does that extend to personal usage as well? Because, as you well know, a lot of users will put their personal passwords and work passwords inside the same vault. How does that work?
Yeah, so for everyone, like when we sell a business license, every user gets a free family license. So you'll have multiple vaults, one for yourself, which is personal, and one for your business. You can toggle between the two, and they're completely separate because you don't want to commingle personal records with your business vault, right? Because if you ever left the organization and they vaporize your vault, you don't want to lose your personal records. So we bifurcate the two, and we give you free personal vaults for your family.
That's awesome. I like that model a lot.
So question about adoption, Darren. I see a lot of password vault use, just talking about the enterprise user facing application, where you store your credentials in there and use it to manage your secrets. What's the barrier to adoption there? Because I've seen like IT groups, maybe the security group buys it just for their team, when it really should be enterprise wide. I think one of the easy places that we can improve security is just giving employees a password vault that'll generate decent passwords so that they don't have to remember complex passwords or have to spend the brain power and the cycles trying to come up with a stronger password. But I still don't see a lot of places doing it enterprise wide, and I'm just kind of curious, in your experience, what gets them to do that, or what are some of the barriers to adoption there, like enterprise scale, enterprise wide, not just the security team?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's interesting, since I started this company with Craig, just over 9 years ago, I've seen such a radical shift in terms of adoption, meaning we used to sell just to IT principally. If you were talking to a mid-market enterprise or public sector organization, it used to just be that. As people become more educated and they're more aware of the pervasiveness of the attack and who the victim is that got hit, right? So for example, with the ransomware attack, it could be somebody in customer support. It doesn't have to be somebody on the engineering team that, gets breached. And then once that support individual or team member, their device is breached, it permeates, across the entire network and locks down the organization. So we have gotten better in terms of educating prospects and how important it is to go chain-wide and employee and device-wide throughout the organization. However, I can't be in a position to say, look, to an organization who just wants to walk before you run, or to an organization that just may not have the budget. I would say this: it's good to start somewhere. I can't enforce or impress myself or the company upon somebody and say, look, you have to go chain wide. It's either that or nothing at all. We work with IT teams and DevOps teams and finance teams, and we work really hard in the discovery process to impress upon them in the non-confrontational supportive way, of course, how important it is. But at the end of the day, the full enterprise-wide adoption is really driven by the board of directors. I think that if the company has adopted a cybersecurity mindset that's pervasive, they won't even think twice about not protecting every single endpoint in the organization or every single employee in the organization, which also needs to extend the contractors that have access as well. So I think that that's getting a lot better. We are selling more enterprise-wide. But again, like if someone is insistent on, starting with IT, then we start with IT, and then we work on expanding from there.
That's really awesome. It is important to have it enterprise-wide, though, because, as we've already established in this segment, that there's lots of use cases for sharing passwords, not just between people, but between applications as well. And you just end up with a lot of passwords and a lot of secrets today.
Yeah,
for sure.
And quite frankly, like I talk to CISOs probably 2 to 3 times a week. That's like at minimum, as does my technology partner, Craig Larry. He's our CTO and co-founder. We're on calls all the time. We're not here to sell. We're here to educate. We're here to gather information in terms of where their critical unmet needs are, what keeps them up at night. It's traditionally not the individual or the device in the IT infrastructure that they're so concerned about. It's not that department. It's everyone else in the organization that they're concerned about, because that's who the cyber criminals are attacking. It's like when you were a kid and you went like bobbing for apples. I don't know if you ever did that. It's like the apples that you go after first are the ones that are floating at the top of the surface. That's your attack surface when it comes to device proliferation, right? Because the IT department, DevOps, are traditionally great at locking things down. But it's the rest of the organization where cyber criminals know that's where I've got my chance in. That's where my venue's going to go. I'm going to attack here, right? I'm going to go after this. I'm going to hit this person in the marketing that handles social media. I'm going after that individual, or I'm going after this individual in customer support. So
I love that analogy. I usually use lowest hanging fruit, but you threw me off. You hit me with highest floating fruit.
Highest floating fruit. Right. I like it.
Yeah, somewhat the inverse.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I tell you what, I think that implementing password vaults and secrets vaults, across your organization and or enterprise is the most fundamental thing that you can do in your security program. It's something I push for. It's the first thing I go after. I'm like, if they don't have that, like, you got to do it. Because
more than 80% of the time, when we do all these studies, as you know, and more than 80% of the time when there's a data breach, it's a result of weak password security or related controls around the lack of security with passwords, credentials, and secrets. So you could have the best endpoint security, the best, anti-malware, right? You can have privileged access management, single sign-on. Those are great, but nothing in cybersecurity is a silver bullet. But if you don't start with password security in terms of mitigating the risk of a data breach, and I can say, just through the facts and the studies that you can do that up to 80% with password security platforms, like you've got to start there, right? Because, I always say that cybersecurity starts with password security. And then it's like spokes of a wheel, right? It's a multi-pronged approach because, again, there's no silver bullet in cyber. At the end of the day, you should have two-factor authentication, single sign-on, right? A really strong identity stack, privileged access management, really detailed reporting and event logging. I heard you talk about SIM in the earlier show, system, and even SCIM, right? SCIM protocols are being used for provisioning, but just the security information and event management solutions, like, let's talk about Splunk, Sumo, Logarithm, Datadog. There's like so many great platforms out there in terms of just our platform integrating with those, just to give you that real-time information. This is all designed to create like a really strong bicycle wheel. That's what I call the identity and access management stack. It's like a giant bicycle wheel. The company's the hub, and then each spoke of the wheel is this facet of identity and access that's important for any cybersecurity strategy.
Yeah, it's interesting if you read any data breach report or any pen test report, you talk to your, my pen tester friends, somewhere along the way, usually it's in the beginning, there's an abuse of some kind of credential that was kind of the underpinning in the thing that allowed them to breach the organization. And I really think that, password vaults and good identity management is the way to combat that and make it much harder for attackers. Yeah.
The other thing too that we're seeing is a lot of, the supply chain attacks, right? Mm-hmm. So just any product out there or infrastructure that relies on, external libraries to update products. This is a scary thing. Again, when you peel off the layers of the onion, most of the attacks are password related. Yeah. They're just related to credential security issues time and time again. So, we are fastidious about just putting this cloak of armor and control around the credential management on every single device for every single team member that transacts with websites, applications, and systems of the organization.
Yeah. So I'll back you up on that, Darren. I just saw a supply chain attack in a library that was stealing the air quotes password vault that's associated with your browser.
There you go.
Stealing your cache credentials and things like that. So yeah, you're right. They were pretty much always after the credentials. Cool. Good stuff. So how does it work? Can folks get a trial or have to engage with the sales team? How does it work for folks that want to learn more and engage with Keeper Security?
Yeah, just go to keepersecurity.com, and there's a lot of different buttons you can press to get what you need. But yeah, we'd love to help anyone out. Free trials. There's a free version of the consumer application if you just want to use it on a standalone basis. But we like to believe that we've priced the application in a way that's accessible to everybody. So anyone in over 120 countries, it's published in 21 languages, full end-to-end. Even the documentation, we like to make it accessible to really defend against what we're calling the cyber warfare. So awesome. Really happy to be here today.
Yeah, Darren, thank you so much for appearing on Enterprise Security Weekly. For folks that want to learn more, you can visit securityweekly.com/Keeper Security. Stay tuned. Coming up next is the Enterprise Security News.